Good evening, everyone. I believe my voice is audible and clear. Okay, great. Yeah. Quickly, we'll start with our session for the day. And I just want a clarity. I have asked you to fill post selection form, and I saw a few messages about unable to access. So, is that the same for everyone, or only for the people who dropped the message in the group?
Ma'am, same for me also.
Everyone, ma'am.
Okay, people who had that issue, raise up your hand. Okay, I could see almost for everyone. Right now, I'm resending the link in the chat box. Can someone give me a confirmation? Is it working? I'm lowering down all of your hands. So once you check and if it is working, please raise up your hand. It's
It's
working?
working. Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. Good. Then I want you guys to complete it on or before tomorrow's session. Is it possible? Anyways, I'll reshare the link in the WhatsApp group too. So make sure you are completing on or before tomorrow's session. Okay, great, good. So we will move on with our discussion for the day. And in our previous session, that is on Monday, we had a discussion on the topic of inheritance, and I believe there are no doubts in it. Can I get a confirmation on that? Okay, great. Then yeah, so we will move on for our next topic for the day. And the topic which we are going to discuss it for the day was one of your keyword in Java, which is going to be a static keyword. So we would have came across with this keyword called static in our public static void main line of every program, right? Yes, no.
Yes.
Yes. So, what did we understand the use of static in public static void main? You guys can add on your understanding why static is added in your PSVM. Okay, no need to create object. Okay, good. I've got only one answer. What about others? I do not want others to be idle. Okay, I could see few answers. Making that entity a class entity. Okay. So let me move on. So what is the need of the static keyword in general? So no need of creating object. When there is a invocation of method, then we need object. Then that comes into picture with respect to only methods. And to make it generally understand what is the use of a static keyword is, whenever you make any variable or a method or a different scenarios which I'm going to tell you, if you make it to be static, then what happens is there will be a close connection with your class than the object. Okay, we cannot say there is no connection at all. The priority matters. It is more connected to the class than the object. Okay, whenever you wanted to make the connection to be very strong with your class before your object than your object, then you make the scenario to be more of static. Is that clear? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. Now, where can we use this static keyword? We can use it on the variable. We can use it on the method. Okay, primarily. You can also make your class to be static also, but not the outer class, instead the inner one. You can also create a block which is static. Okay, I repeat, there are 4 major scenarios: using static keyword on a variable, using static keyword on a method, using static keyword on a class, but not for the outer, instead for an inner, and you can create a block which is static. So we'll see an example for that. So let me create a project. So I'll say it is to be basics and over here let me create a package form.tg.static keyword. Done. Over here let me create a class which is student, and let me create a class static variable demo which has public static void main. Why am I doing this? Because I'm going to use the student class to be reused. Okay. So when we speak about the student, what all inputs we may get? We may get, I'll make it more simpler. So I'll get ID and I'll get a name. Okay. And now tell me which all variables you can make a static. Can we make all variables, or can we make only specific scenario variables to be static? What do you think? All variables? Specific? Okay, the right answer is you cannot make every variable to be static. There are certain things which you should keep it in your mind before making it to be static. What is that? I told you, whenever you make a variable to be static or whenever you use static, the connection is more to your class than the object. Now tell me, will the input for the ID varies from object to object or remains same for all the objects of the class? Does it varies or remains the same? It varies. Okay, can you tell me one variable which will have a similar input across all the objects of the class? And what is that? One basic thing. Branch, okay. Even more relatable, yes, branch. But again, if a batch is having a different branches people, then. But it's good answer anyway. Branch is one such example. Can I say the college name, which will be more relatable considering branch? Even from different branches, people fall under the similar college, correct? Yes. So here I'm going to create one more variable, which is college. Okay. What is the need of making this variable as static is, now what happens now if I wanted to create an object, I will do create saying student S1 is equal to new student, right? Now, if I wanted to pass inputs through constructor, what do? I'll make this to be private, and over here private, and over here to private. And I wanted to pass inputs through constructor. So I'll select constructors using fields. Okay, so now what happens is, for the first student, I have to tell the ID and I have to tell the name. Any volunteers to give your name and the college name, preferably from same college.
Neha.
Neha. So yeah, Neha, you can tell your college name.
MIET. MIET.
Okay, good. So this is the first student info. Then when I try printing S1, if I wanted to get my output, I should have toString. See, I'm just adding my required info. Please do not think why I haven't added getters and setters. I preferred initializing with constructor, so I did not prefer. That's the only reason. Now when I run my code, I will get the first student information. Now if I wanted to do for the second student, and I'll say this is S2 and one more volunteer. Any volunteers, maybe from different college, but I'll consider the same MIET, or from same college.
Ratan.
Ratan. But I got the name from a different account. Fine. So Ratan from MIIT. So in that case, when I try printing my second student information, I get the details. Now what is happening internally is, I notice that both the students are from a similar college and the upcoming student detail who I'm going to add are from again similar college. Then instead of wasting my memory of storing the college name for each and every student separately, now what happens, MIIT of Neha will take a separate memory inside your S1 object reference. Same, Ratan's college name will take a separate memory. Even though the inputs are same, I am wasting my memory and the time for the storage. So in that case, what I'll do is, I will go make this variable to be static. In that case, you will not need your constructor to receive your inputs. I am not manually doing this. See here, when I wanted to generate constructor, do I get the suggestion of college? No. So whenever you make your static, then it's a very obvious understanding that it is going to closely work with classes and it is not going to receive different inputs for each and every object. So that is why the constructor is not expecting us to add the college input. Now in this case, when I do not, or I'm not in need of mentioning over here. Now when I run my code, I do not get the college name because I have not initialized it. So here I will just say MIET. And now when I run the code, could you see MIET is assigned for both the students? Means how much ever object I create using the student class, for all the student, MIIT will be assigned. So here I'll create one more object. I'll say S3 And one more volunteer. Just your name. No one? Just you have to tell me that you are a
Virat.
volunteer. So I could see Sainath unmuting again. So I will add his name only. Sainath. And the ID is going to be 3. And I'll try printing the third student. So now when I run my code, could you see automatically MIET is added? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So the basic understanding is whenever you use the static keyword, it is going to closely work with your classes of the declaration. I have declared the static keyword inside student. So for how much ever object I create using the student, then that static input is assigned for all the objects, or vice versa. You can understand whenever I feel an input is same for all the objects of one specific class, then I make it to be static. Is the first usage clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Moving on for the next usage, it is about your methods, correct? So now I'll use the same student class, but instead I'll create static method demo, which will have public static void main. I'll close a variable demo. Now here, what is the usage of static method? Now for example, I wanted to change, I'll say void change, and I wanted to change the college name. For example, a static input, I wanted to change it, means you can directly change it over here at the time of initialization. If not, you wanted to modify, maybe I'll give a most appropriate name, which is modify. If I wanted to modify, instead of giving MIET, I wanted to give the full form. Okay, so maybe Neha, you can drop the complete full name of your college. I'll copy paste. Okay, so that is a requirement that instead of giving a short form, I would like to give a full form of my college name. In that case, two options you have. Either you can modify at the initialization point, edit it, or you can modify it also. And for modification, you will be in need of a static method, not only for just modification. Here, have a look. Now I give college is assigned to the complete full name. See here, I'm able to do it. And the most important thing is now here, I'm able to do, see here, I'm able to use ID. Let just for an imagination, I'm giving ID to be 1 and name to be Neha. Now, what type of method is this? A void modify, public void modify is what type of method? It is, yeah, I didn't get you, Deepak.
Reinitializing.
Okay. Okay, so the expected answer was it was a non-static method. How do I say it is a non-static method? Is I do not have a static keyword, so it becomes a non-static method. So first usage is why do we make a static or create a static method is your static method has some restrictions. The first and foremost restriction is it does not allow non-static variables to be accessed. Now, is it right if I say ID equal to 1 here, and if whenever I call modify method, always ID will be modified to 1? Is that a right approach? Should the ID be varying from person to person, or it should be always 1?
I'm varying from person to person.
Varying from person to person. So if someone tries doing that, it should not be allowed. It should be restricted. So whenever you are making any static variable or in need of making any modification for static variable, preferred to create a static method so that by mistake, if we access a non-static one, it throws us an error. What is the error? Cannot make a static reference to the non-static field ID. So I remove this and it allows me only the static variable. Now I will do a copy from the previous program. I'm taking the student one information over here. Now when I print the student one, I get, could you see MIET alone? But I did a modification, or I'm in need of a modification. So what I do is I'll give a printing after modification. Maybe there comes an upgradation. There might be any reason for a spelling change in your static variable. There can be anything. So in that case, what I do, I wanted to, which method does your modification? Modify method. How do you call your static method is, there are two ways to call your static method. Okay, there are two ways to call your static method. Directly with the name of your method, the name of the method. Okay, this is your first way, and the second way is calling or invoking with the class name. Okay, these are the two possible ways, and as an exception, you can also call with object reference. When you do this, it is not a mistake. Okay, third one is not a mistake, but it is not a recommended one. Okay, so the third one, I repeat, third one, for example, when you say s1 dot modify, it doesn't create an error for you. It just gives you a suggestion that you are accessing a static method in a non-static manner. Just warns you that it is not needed. You are doing something which is not needed. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, when do you do your second way of accessing? Okay, maybe I'll write here three ways. When do you do the second way of accessing is whenever the static method declaration is in one class and the invocation is in another class. Now, can you tell me the static method is inside which class? Static method is inside which class?
Student.
Student class. And you're trying to invoke it in which class?
Static method demo.
Static method demo. So the place of declaration and the place of invocation, if it is different, then you have to go for your second approach. How do you do it? Invoking with the class name. So you say student dot modify. When you do so, this is the right approach. I'll give this is your second approach, and this is a syntax for your third approach. Now, after calling your method, when you try printing the student one detail again, now you see a change in value of the college name. Could you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, how do you do, or when do you do your first approaches? Whenever the place of declaration and the place of invocation are same. Now here, if I have public static void main, let me write this public static void main and all this in this particular student. Okay. I'm having public static void main in student itself. Now if I wanted to call modify method, modify is inside student class, and I'm also calling inside public static void main, which is inside student class. Then I can just say modify alone. Now when I print the first student information, I get my output. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you may ask me, ma'am, what if I do the first approach here? If you just write modify over here, it ends up throwing you an error because the compiler doesn't know where is this modify method, because there is an accessibility issue. Even though you can say it is of public, but the compiler doesn't know where it is present because it is static in nature. It is accessible through classes, so it is not that easy to track it. Got it? Is the first two usages clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, people who have any doubts, please do raise up your hand so that I'll clear it, then move on.
Ma'am, can you quickly brief what is
Repeat what? Which part of your explanation?
like that S1 dot modify and student?
Your voice is not that clear. Yes, Ankita, I want you to tell me what did I explain or which part, because I was explaining for the past 30 minutes, at least for 20 minutes. Out of that, which one you want me to repeat?
Ma'am, modify like S1 dot modify S1 dot.
Okay, yeah. So when do you go with your second approach, that is, or the third approach, whichever I have mentioned over here? The third one is not a recommended one. If you do, it is not a problem. So why did I tell you the third approaches? Because I have seen people finding the statement in their multiple choice question, and they say, ma'am, we cannot access static method with object. We should access only with class. This is a wrong understanding. It is recommended to access only with class, but if you access it with object, it is not a problem. It is not an error. That is what I'm trying to tell in your third possibility. Is that clear? Usually, we access method with object. In a similar manner, if you access static method with object also, that is not going to create a problem. But please do not prefer while you are writing a code. It shows that you did not understand the concept. But in multiple choice, they may give to confuse you. And I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other doubts for anyone? Ankita, it would be good if you tell me in specific what is your doubt. Okay. So let me move on for the next one. Now, method is done. The next usage would be your class. So let me create a class. I'll say static class demo, which has public static void main. Okay. Just give me a minute. I'll be back. Okay, yeah, so I'm back. Let us continue. So I have created static class demo. So now what am I going to do is, I'm going to create a class called outer, since it was my outer class, okay, in which I'm going to create another class called inner. So you can have inner classes in your Java. So on that understanding, I'm creating such class over here. Now, in my outer class, I have my variable called data, and let me initialize it with some value. Let me say it to be 10. And in my inner class, I have a method. Let's say it is void message, so which will print the data. Done. Now here, whenever I wanted to call this message, how do I call? See, generally, whenever we wanted to call or invoke a method, how do we call? If you wanted to call or invoke your method, what is the syntax of the procedure? Object creation, right? So now here I have this message method inside my inner. So when I create object of inner, when I say inner I is equal to new inner, and this class will not be identified because it is nowhere accessible outside. So how do you access it? You say outer dot inner. Wait, always how do you access your inner classes? You have to access it with the help of your outer class. So you say outer dot inner. This is common in Java, not only for your static usage. You say new outer dot inner. But when you say for your object creation, always be very careful in that usage. Now here, what is your error? There is no enclosing syntax of outer is accessible. Okay. So here there is, okay, we'll solve these things later. Did I use I somewhere? Okay, this I. Okay, as of now, this is how you use. Now here, if I wanted to make my variable to be static, I make static int. Okay. Now, just give me a minute. Let me check. Did I make any internal mistake? I mean, some spelling or some mistake. And if you could also find the basic Java syntax error or something which I have committed, you can please pinpoint. Yeah, as I told, it's a concept related syntax mistake only. So I told, okay, how many of you know about the concept of inner class, anonymous inner class, just the inner class? How many of you have a knowledge on it? Okay, so if you guys do not have, I'll just tell you how does it works with static keyword, because here we do not have an issue with your object creation, because there is a syntax or there is a procedure whenever you wanted to create an object for your inner class. You cannot just like that directly create it, and that is where the concept of static comes. Static keyword overcomes the issue, or it can be worked without the object creation. That is what we have as an understanding, right? So whenever you use static, the connection or the relationship is more strong with your class than the object. And that issue is sorted over here. When you make a class to be an inner class to be static, see here, the error of your object creation is sorted. Could you see the difference? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, is it clear or you want me to repeat it?
Repeat once again, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, I'll repeat once again. So here, I'll undo all the things which I have done over here. Okay, so what I've done, I have created a class and which is outer, and I've also created a class which is inner. And I've created a variable in my outer class and can access it inside a method in my inner class. This is absolutely right. But what is the issue is whenever you wanted to create an object for your outer, we can just like that say outer O is equal to new outer. So this is a right one. And if you wanted to access outer dot data, you can access it like this. And if you wanted to access, could you access the message method? Could you see the suggestions? Even though the message method is inside the inner class, which is inside the outer class, will you get the accessibility? If you ask me, it is not possible. See here manually when I type, also it ends up throw me an error. The method is undefined. When do you get the message of undefined? When the compiler doesn't know where it is located. Is that clear till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now if you wanted to access this message, you have to create object for your inner. Now if you ask me, ma'am, can we create object in a regular syntax? So you say inner I is equal to new inner. This is our regular syntax of object creation. Now when I do this, it doesn't recognize that there is an inner class. That is why here it says create a class or else change it to form.cg.static keyword.outer.inner. What is this syntax? I have told you in one of our session. Whenever you see such line in your program, what is this? Technical name. In your yeah, it is in the package. Good, Pratik. And in package session, specifically, what did I tell you? The technical name. Okay, good. So anyways, the in package session, did I tell you about fully qualified name? Yes or no? I told you about 3 possible ways to access or reuse your classes. Write your import statement with specific class name, or write your import statement with star which selects all the classes, or go with fully qualified name. Without even writing import statement, whenever you are using your class, write the complete name which is package name followed with the class name. Does everyone remember? If not, please do revise. If you are lagging, that is not going to help anytime. So one option is either give fully qualified name. So I do not prefer that. Instead, what I can do, I can say outer.inner, just the class name, since it is inside the same package. This is sorted. Your LHS is sorted. But when you go for your RHS part, that is not accepted syntactically. That is not permitted syntactically. Okay, so now what happens is, now here you get an error. Why is this error? Because you cannot create an object for your inner class in your regular object creation syntax. That is not permitted in Java. In our previous session, I told you multiple inheritance was not permitted in Java through classes. That is why we found an alternative. Similarly, creation of object for your inner class in your regular syntax is not permitted. So we should go for an alternative. And that alternative is making your inner class to be static. So what happens? Static is a keyword which which works closely with your classes, not with your object. So the issue is sorted. Clear? Is it clear now? Yes, great. Now the next issue which came up is the data which is accessed inside your static class is throwing us an error. What did I tell you in static method? Inside a static method, you cannot access a non-static variable. Similarly, inside a static class, you cannot access a non-static variable. So I make this variable also as static. Is that clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Now you can, in a regular format, you can call your message method and you get your output. And why do I get 20 as my output? Because initially I told it is static. Later on I modified it to be 20 and I'm accessing it with the access. Since it is static, it is going to be same for all the classes. Now if I do an object creation, let me say this is I1, and when I say I1 over here, I get 20 only again because it is static. So the basic understanding is you cannot create object for your inner class in your regular syntax, and that is not permitted. So you make it to be static because static closely work with classes, not with the object. So the issue is sorted. Clear? People are clear with this? Raise up your hands quick. Out of 18, 17 to 18 participants, only 12, 13. Okay, good. So moving on for the fourth usage, which is about your static block. What is this static block is? Whenever you feel a certain parts of your code, okay, tell me before me telling about static block, whenever I run a Java program, which part of my code runs first?
Main method.
Public static void main, right? So you may tell me, yes, public static void main, but after learning today's session or after understanding about static block today, your answer should be, if the program doesn't have static block, then PSVM. If your program has static block, then static block. So here is a justification. I'll tell you what is the need of it also. So here I will create a static block. Then I'll give I am a static block. Okay. Now okay, here only we have public static void main, right? So here I'll give I am a main method. So now see, when I run my code, which output am I getting first? Is my public static void main or the static block one?
Static block.
Static block. Again, now see here, when I comment it, and when I give a call, maybe modify. Okay, and in modify, I'll give a printing statement. I am a modify method. Which one works first now?
Main method.
Yeah, main method. So the basic understanding is whenever you are in a need to make sure certain things are ready before even you start your process. Now, for example, every one of you took your baseline assessment. Before even attending your baseline assessment, you should have received the platform link. You should have received the login credentials. You should have been ready with your Aadhaar card. Only then you will be allowed to take up your test. Before even you start your test, you should make sure all these things are being checked. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. To make it more simpler, whenever you are installing any application in your mobile or laptop, the first and foremost thing or the first and foremost check happens is, does your device has the network connection? Without network connection, will you be able to install an application?
No, ma'am.
No. So these are the real times which we can take it easily, understand it easily because we are facing across. Similarly, when you are technically implementing something, there are certain checklist has to be checked before even public static void main works. And that you will do in the upcoming advanced sessions which we come across. So all this checklist to be checked will be kept inside your static block. So before even your public static void main works, the checklists are checked and it is ready for the next process which I have kept inside public static void main. Clear? Yes, no.
Yes, ma'am.
So here comes the end of your static keyword discussion. Let me do a summarize. So whenever you use static keyword, you can use it on a variable to make sure this remains same for all the objects across the classes. I mean, all the objects for the class which you make it to be static. And method, whenever you wanted to access it in a class level, then you make your method to be static. And whenever you wanted a certain things to be ready before even you start your work, then create a static block. And whenever you wanted to keep your concepts or classes in an inner level, not to be directly accessible, but in an inner level, then you make your class to be inner class with a static accessibility. Okay, so here comes the end of your static usage, and people are clear with all the 4 usage. Can quickly raise up your hands. On that note, we will move on for the attendance for the day.